It's Halloween time, and today is my review of Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. So I guess, depending on, I don't really know what the audience is for this. I guess people that either have a really, really good sense of humor, and people absolutely just kind of despise Jane Austen, and they find her boring, and they hate that they had to read the book in high school or college or whatever, and they kind of want to see it sort of turn on its head. I don't really know who the audience is for this movie. I know a lot of people are probably going to find this movie very tasteless and disrespectful. Like, how dare you take a dead woman's book and you add zombies to it? But I mean, it's in the public domain, so like that stuff like that's going to happen when it's in public domain. So I think it had a good sense of humor. So just so you know, so this is based off of a book, and I don't mean just Pride and Prejudice. Like, there is a legitimate book called Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, and it was probably the easiest thing in the world for the author to write because it's literally word for word Pride and Prejudice, but then they'll just throw like a random zombie attack in there. Like in the book, there's a scene where they're at the party and they're being very posh and talking about the men that we are going to marry and blah blah blah, and all the stuff that you give Pride and Prejudice, and then it describes that the zombies attack them. And it goes into very graphic detail about how the sisters are shooting up these zombies or slaying these zombies with swords. It goes into like very graphic detail about the carnage that is ensuing. So that is sort of the tone of the book. And then it just goes right back to being Pride and Prejudice word for word as if nothing happened. So that is kind of like what the movie is a little bit, but it is a little bit more like that. Like, it's one of the movies where it's self-aware without letting you in on the fact that it is self-aware. Like, it plays it super serious. It's not like Spaceballs or something like that where they kind of wink at the camera and they're like, yeah, we know exactly what we're doing. We're going to be, a little bit self-aware with this. We're going to break forth. It's not like that. But these lines, some of these lines in this movie are so ridiculous, but they're said with such seriousness. And props to the scriptwriter, because there's lines in this movie that sound like they would have come out of a Jane Austen novel, but they're clearly not because they're talking about zombies. But they're lines where it's like, if you were just to kind of hear this randomly, it would sort of be like, oh yeah, that's clearly from the novel, even though it's not. But it's written that way, and it's kind of funny that they did it that way. Honestly, I have to say, I'm a little upset there wasn't enough zombie action, because most of this movie is kind of just Pride and Prejudice, with a little bit of a self-aware spin to it. But the zombie action is really well done. Like, when the action is it's really well choreographed. And there's all these flips, and they're shooting, and sort of like that stuff is super fun. The action is very, very well done. And like I said, it is kind of self-aware. Like, there's slides that are kind of serious. Like very early in the movie, I think we got like 15 minutes in, with the first zombie that gets shot. They're like, oh, you just shot Mrs. So-and-so. And then the girl's like, yes, but it was an undead Mrs. So-and-so. But he says it with such seriousness. Like, yes, but she was an undead Mrs. So-and-so. That it's sort of humorous without the intention of it. Well, it is intended to be humorous, but it's not said with a tone where it's like they're being cheeky with it. They're playing it so serious and so stoic that that's kind of what makes it funny. Like, there's all these other, like, there's another part where, like I said, they're at this party and the men are sort of commenting on all the women that are there. And it's like, oh, yes, her arms are very good for fighting. And she has so it's like, oh, yes, she'd be very good at fighting the undead because we have an undead plague that is happening. So it is kind of funny how, like, the plague, the Black Plague has sort of made the zombies the backdrop of this story, and they're kind of throwing it into there with, the art of war. Like, they're very surprised that one of these girls has read The Art of War. They're like, oh, I didn't think that was a book that someone like you would read. So they're kind of being very poking fun at it without saying it in a way that they're being cheeky about it. They're playing it very seriously, very posh, very serious, which is what makes it funny. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it depends. I don't really know who the audience is for this, but I mean, give it a shot. It's kind of funny. It's not as, if you're going to expect it to be like, all the zombie action thing, it's not like that. It's not like the entire movie is zombies. Like I said, the majority of it is kind of the same story. They're just kind of occasionally poking fun at it. But when it pokes fun at it, it really has a lot of fun with it. I had a lot of fun with it. So I would say that Pride and Prejudice and Zombies gets a B, an 8 out of 10 to 4 out of 5 stars from me.